to show you, and then I'll get started on the wheel throwing. So this one I threw, and what I love about this is it actually shows you the S-crack issue. Not by design, I didn't purposely do that. Hey, let's make it so that it S-cracks. Apparently I didn't compress the base clay very well, and this is exactly what happens to a bowl when you don't compress the base clay, which then it becomes a planter because liquid would just go right through that crack. Sometimes you're lucky enough that glaze can fill it, but typically the crack gets bigger. It doesn't get smaller when we fire to the second firing, and then it's even worse. It's worse of a problem. So I threw this one. Miss Boyd, if any of you had the opportunity to have Miss Boyd, threw this one. So I was trying to get them to be fairly similar, okay? And I wanted them to stack, which they do. So you can have one that's larger, one that's smaller, if you want, or you can have them both fairly the same size. And there are a couple techniques that I'm going to show you how to get the right same size, okay? So, one technique that you can use is the age-old ruler. And you can measure kind of the inside shape, the outside lip, and all that with the ruler. And then I would take notes, because if you do it one day, you throw one day, you get those measurements, but then you forget. If it shrinks overnight or a couple days later, the measurements that you originally took are the ones you need, not the shrunken measurements. Because then you're trying to make the other one fit something that's already shrunk through drying and possibly even through firing, depending on how long it takes you to throw the second one. So you always want to take measurements immediately after you throw it, okay? So then these are called calipers, and these give you the same kind of opportunity to get measurements. Looks like I have to tighten this one a little bit, but if you overlap them like this, you can take measurements using kind of either the outside of this, or if it's not stacked on top of itself, it doesn't hold the measurement very well. So you can see that this one is actually overlapped in such a way that it's creating a bunch of friction. And for these bowls, they're not really going to ever get too much bigger than that, so this is going to work perfect. Otherwise, I just need to tighten this, and I don't have the tools to do that right now. So I'm going to, and these are found in this little tub over here, usually at the bottom. This little tub is usually found right here on top of the back. Okay, so you can see that I have multiples in here. Let's see if this one's, nope, still needs to be tightened. Let's see if it allows me to tighten. It does, good. Okay, so this one's good. Maybe. Nope. You want it to be tight so that it holds the shape and the measurement. After you get your measurement with this, you could also get the measurement off the ruler and then lock it into your notes if you needed to. Okay? So, I'm going to put this back in there, put this here, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I would encourage you to use a bat because you may or may not get it done in the first throwing day. And that way you can kind of cover it, and if you do cover it immediately and you forget the measurements or you lost the measurements, you might get away with being able to make another one. All right, so I have 2.5 pounds of clay, and that's what you're going to want to start with. I've already kind of got it eyeball centered. It is a gumdrop, and I locked it on with my index finger, and I'm not full speed, I'm about 3/4 speed, okay? So the centering of your piece is the same as any other time. Left hand pushes in at 6 o'clock, right hand kind of karate chops, kind of roll over, and then I like to wheel wedge for a while. So this first couple times, I'm just kind of dancing with the clay, getting it to move, getting it to increase in height, and then pushing it down, rounding it off, and then really starting to focus on centering it, okay? Some of you that have been using these bats have discovered that they tend to move a little bit on you. And if that is the case, some of the things that you can do to combat that is you can get tape and put tape, one layer of tape around the top of this bolt, and that will make the bolt a little bit thicker, and it will make it so that it doesn't wobble inside the hole. If this is moving, it's because the hole has gotten warped or a little bit bigger than it should be. And not the hole in the wheel head, but the hole at the bottom of the bat or inside the bat. Okay, so that'll help prevent it from wobbling If it wobbles, you can't center it. It's really hard to center. Okay, so once I feel like I have it centered, I hand rest check, make sure that there's no wobble, and then I'm going to go ahead and start to make the initial well. Make a C with my left hand, find the center, and start to push down. Now, by design, I'm going to make sure that I leave about an inch between my fingertip and the wheel head instead of 3/4 of an inch, because when I compress the base clay, I'm going to make that deeper. And I'm also going to need to have some clay to kind of widen the bowl up. So you want to have the base clay a little bit thicker than you normally do for a bowl. Okay, so I stab my needle tool in there, I grab it, I pull it out, and I am currently right at an inch. That's like perfect. Oh my gosh, it's almost like I've done this before. Okay. So then now that I'm widening the well, I actually slow the wheel down even a little bit more so I'm in control. Make sure that you hydrate it. I make my fingers level this time, and I pull that clay out to the palm of my left hand, nice and slow and methodically. And I slowly take my hand up and off. And then this is where I'm going to start to compress the base clay. So I push down with my middle finger, and I pull out to 3/4 o'clock, somewhere in there. It doesn't have to be perfect. But I'm doing this a couple times, and I am pushing down, and I'm really kind of compressing that base clay, okay? And if it gets a little dry, add just a little bit of water, and do that a couple times. So start at the center and kind of pull out towards the outer wall about 3 or 4 o'clock, okay? So you'll notice that my lip is a little pointy right now, so I'm going to make a C with my left hand. I'm actually going to slow the wheel down even a little bit more. So about 1/4 speed at this point, so I'm in total control. I make a C with my left hand. I'm at 430 here, and I'm going to push down where my C is with my left hand, and my right hand is pushing down and creating kind of a compressed lip. That's what I'm doing right there. Okay. So I have to kind of tear off some of this clay that's coming out off the bottom, and then I'm going to create the groove. So I stick my thumb in here at 430 with my right hand. That creates the groove, and I just kind of clean off some of the clay that sticks to the side. And I've got my groove. When I'm doing pools for a bowl, it's a little different than when we're trying to do pools for a cylinder. I'm not trying to come straight up. I'm actually trying to make sure that I'm already starting to bowl with each pool. I'm pushing out more with my inside hand, which is getting it to kind of bowl out. And so as I'm doing a pool, a pinch, it's not straight up, it's kind of coming out towards me, and it's already starting to kind of open up a little bit. And you can see that the inside of the bowl is already a kind of a bowl shape, okay? And that's kind of what you want by design with the bowl. So I'm just hydrating the inside of the bowl, hydrating the outside of the bowl. I create that groove again. And I'm going to do a pinch, and I'm going to start to pull it out again towards me. So I am lifting it. It is getting a little bit taller, but it's also bowling, creating a bowl, okay? And then the physics behind any bowl that you throw, technically, is that the outer lip can only be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches wider than the base of the bowl. Or, by physics, and by gravity, it's going to want to start to collapse, okay, because it doesn't have anything underneath it to support it. So you just, I mean, you can get away with it. You'll see some potters out there that get their bowls to come way out from the base, and you're like, wow, they're like defying physics. Yeah, they're really good at what they do. They've been doing it for a while. So it is kind of a rule, but it's not like you can't break it. Okay, you can. Some of the things that they can do with that is that they throw, and they don't throw with a lot of water, so their clay is pretty stiff. The clay is actually stiffer than straight out of the bag clay. They want to throw with a little bit stiffer clay. So there's a lot of little techniques that they use to make it so that they can do that. Sometimes they even get a torch, and while it's spinning on the wheel, they torch it, they flame it, which helps kind of dry it a little bit, stiffens it up again, and then they do another pull or two after they've kind of got it leather hard. So there's lots of different cool techniques that are kind of behind the scenes that potters use. All right, so I'm starting from the center. I work out to the outer edge, then I'm pinching, and I'm starting to bowl out again towards me. And I'm lifting up the bowl, and then I slowly open up when I get to the lip, and then I compress the lip. Okay, so right here, before I do the next pull, I'm going to actually get my rubber rib, and I'm going to really compress the base clay again. Okay, so you use the rounded part of this rubber rib. You want to make sure that there's no dry clay on this, because if there is, it kind of creates weird shapes and designs in your clay. So just kind of clean it off, and I'm going to come in here at the center, and I'm going to push down with the rubber rib and come out to the bowl. Some of it tears off, that's okay. Okay, you're just kind of making that base smooth, and you're compressing it to really make sure that you don't get that S-crack. This again is why we made sure that we had an inch thick clay, because I've compressed it like 4 or 5 times at this point. Okay? Alright, so this is probably going to be my last pool. I am going to shape it a little bit more, and then I'm going to actually flange the lip out a little bit. Okay, so I'm hydrating the clay. Just get some water, load up water in your sponge. Hydrate the inside, hydrate the outside. And then here at this point, you can actually use some other ribs. And I have these in this box typically. This is just in my office, just to the right of the printer. And then there's all of these different ribs. There's ones that have ridges in them that are kind of curved, cut out. So this is a plastic rib, just like this one, but a different shape. And you bend it to get it to kind of take the shape of the bowl that you want. I usually use a couple fingers and a thumb, and I create the curve that I want with that. There are a couple that are exactly the same. They're kind of color coordinated. So red is a little bit more flexy rubber rib, and this is the one I tend to like. So this is the one I'm going to use, and there's another one in here for you guys. Okay, so you need to get your tool wet. I'm even changing the speed of the wheel so that it's super slow at this point, really slow. Okay, totally in control. So I get my tool wet. I've already hydrated the bowl. Get my hands wet. And I kind of create the shape that I want. And then I'm going to start to push this clay out to this shape. Oops, it caught a little bit. It gets it to go kind of a bowl shape. See if I can fix it. There we go. So it takes on this really beautiful bowl shape on the outside. Okay, and then I want to flange that lip out. So you want to get your left hand really wet. It's going to be on the outside here at 430. Your right hand, right fingers go on the inside, and you start to gently push that lip over your fingers to get it to flange out. Okay. All right, and then that lip is a little sharp right now. So I'm going to take a piece of leather. I'm going to get it wet, and I'm going to make it into a horseshoe shape. And I'm going to drag it over that lip until I get it to the round smoothness that I want. Okay. Try to do one more pull here just to kind of fix it. Some cool things you can do. You can take your 90-degree wood rib and come in here. Oops, my hand's not wet enough. If you feel like your hand is sticking, make sure you hydrate the clay, so that otherwise it's going to catch and it's going to go off center on you. So I'm kind of just hydrating the outside, hydrating the inside. I'm going to take this wood rib and I'm going to create kind of a sharp edge right on the inside, right there. Clean up some of the clay that kind of tore off. But that just kind of created a sharp edge right there on the inside of the bowl, which I kind of like. So if you want to do that, you can. And then before I take this off, I'm just going to make sure that I clean up any of the slip that I don't want. One last touch up on the lip here. And then I like to add a spiral on the inside of my bowl. So I'm going to start at the center and start to drag my finger. This wheel is going super slow. That way when you get to the bottom of your food, your bowl, your soup, whatever, you got this kind of cool spiral in there. Okay, if you want. You don't have to do that. All right, so now we need to take some measurements. I'm just going to kind of soften that up a little bit so it doesn't catch a lot of food when I need to wash it later. All right, so that's the spiral. I would kind of clean up the base just a little bit before I cut it off. So I'm going to take this wood trim tool and come in here and kind of clean this up just a little bit. Remember, some of this I can clean off